Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
This is a More Than Just podcast production.
So, hey, welcome to Spotcast, Season 4, Episode 39. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
We back, baby.
We back. And we're also joined by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Who's also back, but not for the same reason. But, you know. So you were traveling for business, like in airplanes and stuff?
No, concert. Oh, him.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Forget you. We know it.
I thought you were wondering why I was away.
No, we knew why you were away, but Jaime was saying today he's been traveling or something.
It was a effectively 3-day work trip for budget meetings, so tons of fun.
Wow, do you have to go to a head office and stuff, or?
It is, I think, technically one of the main offices. It's not the headquarters. This is over in Kansas. So I flew into MCI, Kansas City, Missouri's airport, and drove across to the other Kansas to a place called Lenexa.
Wait, there's 2 Kansases?
So you went to Kansas City, Kansas, as opposed to Kansas City, Missouri?
I went through Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas, en route to Lenexa. Lenexa is probably 30 minutes from the airport in Kansas City, Missouri.
Don't you guys have enough names in the U.S. to go around?
I wish I had a way to take a picture because, I'm diligent in safety. And since I was driving, I couldn't, at 65 miles an hour or whatever it was in the 70 zone, I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. I'm passing an Ottawa University. Wish I had a picture of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I used to sing that song with when we did the Beatles covers. We used to do that going to Kansas City. Now I'm confused. Where am I going? Right? Anyway.
Ottawa University and
which
Ottawa,
one?
Kansas.
Well, I'm talking about Kansas City. You said there's one in Missouri and one's in Kansas?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, they're right across the state border from each other. Kansas City, Missouri is apparently, and I'm told this by locals, I apologize to anybody from the Kansas City, Kansas one who feels offended.
They don't listen to the show, don't worry about it.
Folks in Missouri are like, no, when you say Kansas City without any qualification, you mean the one in Missouri because it's much bigger. And when you say Kansas City and you mean the one in Kansas, you say Kansas.
Yeah, because the Kansas City, Missouri is where, that's where the Royals are. That's where the Chiefs are. That's where the famous larger version.
Yeah, see, that would be confusing, but all that nonsense.
It's all part of this weird metro area, though. There's a lot of people going back and forth, kind of no surprise.
Are they separated by a water or something like a river or something? Or
there's the Missouri River that I would guess is a very poor way to divide it. I don't know what the historical division is. The state line is straight up and down. I don't know how that was decided.
I just love the idea of 2 groups being no, this is Kansas City. No, this is Kansas City. Well, we're going to keep calling it Kansas. No, we're going to keep calling it Kansas City.
There's a lot of that in the States. I don't know what Canada's like, but there's, Virginia and there's a West Virginia.
Yeah, you got to have
Carolina, North Carolina.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't get it. Yeah. That's what I mean. Can't you have enough vowels or something to buy a letter or something? Anyway. All right, let's move on. Fact check. All right, Jonathan, you're up first on the fact check.
Fact check. Okay, so you guys were talking about human cloning. You were talking about the made up Shenzhen convention thing that they had in Star Trek Picard a few episodes ago. And we're talking about whether or not there was actually laws around human cloning. So there are laws against human cloning. Depends on the country. There is no sort of global accord on human cloning. It really does vary country by country. In Canada, it is fully illegal to clone a human being. You cannot clone humans. You cannot clone stem cells. Cannot grow human embryos for research purposes. You cannot buy or sell any of that stuff for human reproductive material. It's a no-go. In America, not as much. They're a little more open about it. And so there are no federal laws banning the cloning completely, but 15 different states ban reproductive cloning, and 3 of them prohibit use of public funds for activities like that, but it is not illegal. So theoretically, depending on which state you're in, let's see if there's anything on. I don't see anything on Washington State here, but yeah, theoretically there's places where you can be cloned or clone human beings and grow your own person in the United States and around the world. There are certainly some places. So there are a sort of a mix of rules depending on where you're at. But it's kind of disappointing when you look at the list. There's only about 70 countries that actually have any laws on the books at all. There's a lot of places where it's just a gray area.
What about cloning sheep? Are you allowed to clone sheep?
Well, and again, those are fine, right? Because that's for research purposes and everything else. It's the human cloning where people seem to have a real line drawn.
Yeah, I could imagine. I wonder why. Anyway, all right, let's move on to the next thing. You want to take credit for last week's story?
No, that's fine.
All right.
That was just me being a turd.
Yeah, you were being a turd. Okay, John Pertwee turns out to be the 3rd Doctor, and Tom Baker, who some would say is my favorite Doctor, was the 4th Doctor. I remember being very confused about this when I was younger, watching Doctor Who, because they used to be on PBS. They weren't necessarily. I don't know if they were necessarily in order. Somebody who watched it back when I was younger probably knows this better than me, because John Pertwee, you'd see episodes with John Pertwee playing the Doctor, and you'd see episodes with Tom Baker being the Doctor. But I remember the big floppy hat and the long scarf. That to me was the Doctor from the get-go. So in my mind, it was almost like Tom Baker was before John Pertwee, but it could be the thing. And the reference to that was the famous Best Batman poll, which we'll talk about today, I think. John Pertwee's son plays Alfred in one of the in the Gotham series, right?
Yep.
All right, and you're up next, Jonathan, to a little bit of fact check on the Batman movie.
Yeah. Speaking of Alfred, so you guys were not sure who played what, where, and when. So I will just give you the threesome that you guys were kind of drawing a blank on. So Ralph Fiennes played Alfred in the Lego Batman movie. Joseph Hodge played him in Joker, the more recent iteration starring Joaquin Phoenix. And Jack Bannon plays him on the Pennyworth series that is on TV.
Yeah. So if Alfred was in the Joker movie, I forget. Was there a Bruce Wayne character in the movie Joker?
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen.
You haven't seen the Joker movie yet?
I don't really care for Joaquin Phoenix as an actor. I find him to be really a lot. So
he's a slap in the face. In other words? Yeah. Okay.
He just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
I know people who rave about how good he was in Gladiator. I found him to be.
I hated him in Gladiator.
A scenery devouring acting monstrosity, but people love that movie. So.
Well, I didn't like it. I didn't like him in. I mean, if that was his intention to be like, an unlikable character in a rogue or whatever in Gladiator, he did a good job, because I really didn't like him in that either. So. Yeah, I sat through some of the interview with him on Letterman, and when he did that sort of going off on his out of his mind sort of thing, that was a bit strange. Yeah, so but I did enjoy the Joker movie. I got to say, like the Joker movie, in spite of the man, and so again separating the art from the man, it was a very enjoyable movie. It did remind me a bit what was that one called, The Comedian or whatever, the one where the Italian actor Robert De Niro kidnaps or shows up on. He gets.
Oh, is it King of Comedy?
King of Comedy. It reminded me very much of that sort of.
Yeah.
The sort of Carson-esque scene that they had in the Joker. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I guess I'm voting with my dollars, as we always talk about. I just feel like I I find the fragmentation, the continued, like, let's just try this and see if it sticks to the wall of the DC filmmaking to be a little difficult to take sometimes. And that, to me, felt like the ultimate version of it, which is, let's just take this one character in isolation away from the duality of what makes him the most compelling thing, and we'll just use it to give Joaquin Phoenix a chance at an Oscar. I didn't really do anything for me.
I don't know if that was the actual intention, but yeah, so I was going to ask, so is that Joker movie considered canon as in the DC universe?
No, I don't think so. No, I think it's supposed to be in its own little pocket,
right?
Which is probably for the best.
All right, cool.
But again, the fact that it was successful and it won an Oscar tied to a DC product muddles the market even more, because that's got to increase somebody's appetite to do more of that. And then what? Like, then you end up with an even more fragmented,
right,
sort of way of doing things over there, which is, yeah, it's kind of a catastrophe as is.
Right. Okay, so I was going to ask, so I don't know how I ended up in this part of the conversation with Carol the other day, but we're talking about I think I was talking about, Jaime's asking me about what I thought about the costumes in Strange New World, and which brings us back to the discussion about the latest Discovery uniforms with the unmatching hems at the bottom. Carol says it's a waste of fabric, frankly. She says it's a lot of work. It's designed for design's sake. She says you have to have 2 front pattern pieces. It takes longer to draft the pattern, longer to sew. She says it's just dumb. And yeah, designed for the sake of design, and there is no function to it. Like, then she's a forms follow function kind of person. She just said some designer thought it would be fun, and she just thinks it's dumb. So there you go.
Did you guys see the detail that they, I think, I can't remember if it was on StarTrek.com or maybe one of their social channels. They did a detail shot of the uniforms for Strange New Worlds, and what looks like sort of little black marks on the tunics is actually little Star Trek insignias.
Oh, really?
Like,
yeah, tiny,
like
super, little, tiny, like the pattern,
tiny
fabric.
Little, yeah, really cool. Like, I mean, as somebody, I think, in one of the comments posted, like, this is a nightmare for cosplayers.
Well, it's also like, it reminds me of the stylized fabric in the new Supermans. The new Superman movies have that. It's not just a piece of blue fabric anymore. Like, it's sort of it's textured, or it's kind of like woven or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is that's
it looks like athletic wear or something.
Yeah, I mean and you see that now in all of the sort of Avengery kind of like bits of leather and stuff like that used in the Captain America costumes and stuff like that, right? And Iron Man, obviously, with the plastic and whatever, but. Yeah, it's really, and even Moon Knight. I mean, like, his costume's kind of intricate too in the way it's put together. And I love the fact. So the other character, as you pointed out here, I don't know why I drew a blank on Stephen's last name, but Stephen Grant, Mark Spector, Moon Knight, and did you put this more to come?
I put Mr. Knight and more to come.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you today, because I'm doing the recap on Moon Knight again. I didn't know what that other character is called. It's like
Oh, when he wears the suit that looks like it's tailored suit?
Front? Yeah. Looks like
yeah, so that's Mr. Knight is what they call that outfit, Mr. Knight. And that's when Steven takes control and then shifts into the sort of crime fighter, he's Mr. Knight. And yeah, more to come. There's we'll talk about that when we do the recap.
Well, they did imply there's a third character, which we'll get into. Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Yeah.
And then you get some more fact check.
Yeah, you guys were talking about how when Steven turns into Mr. Knight, he sort of pulls these 2 sticks out from behind his thing and says, "Well, these are neat. What are these for?" So those are eskrima sticks. Those are fighting sticks, and they're a Filipino fighting weapon.
But there was a character in like one of the Marvel or DCs that had something like that.
Yep. There's there's a bunch of different characters.
The guy with the arrows. No, not the guy.
Green Arrow?
Green Arrow.
No, well, yeah. So lots of characters have used them in different sort of superhero properties. The one in the comic books that uses them is Nightwing.
Oh, okay.
So that's Dick Grayson post Robin. He uses a pair of eskrima sticks to use as his weapons because he can use them in a non-lethal fashion, obviously.
Oh, is that the whole point? Oh, okay.
Yep. And they're a little bit like Daredevil, too. Daredevil has the cane that comes apart, and the cane, he can use them as 2 separate eskrima sticks.
Cool. All right. And then you got some Ghost Rider stuff for us.
Yeah, we were. I enjoyed Jaime's talking about Ghost Rider. It was like a nice '90s pull there. We were talking about what his name was. It's Ketch. Yeah, Danny Ketch was the second incarnation after Johnny Blaze, and then there was Hector Reyes is the third sort of contemporary iteration of Ghost Rider. And just for completion, the series that's gotten a lot of attention over the last few years is they've the latest incarnation of Cosmic Ghost Rider, which is sort of Ghost Rider in the future and in outer space, is actually the soul of Frank Castle, the Punisher, which is if you have a chance to read it, is a very interesting story because you get all the backstory of the Punisher, plus he makes the deal with the devil to become the Ghost Rider to continue his sort of work after his death. It's really cool. It's really cool.
Cool. All right. And last thing in the fact check, I was talking about Fantastic Voyage. Was a 1966 American science fiction movie created by or directed by Richard Fleischer and written by Harry Kleiner, based on a story about a couple of guys, Otto Clement and Jerome Bixby, right? And of course, I had the book in grade school, which is why I was confused about the fact that I thought it was by Asimov. Well, it turns out the Bantam books also had the rights to the novelization based on the screenplay, because it was a movie first by Irwin Allen. And Isaac Asimov actually wrote it. So a lot of people, it was released 6 months before the movie, but of course I didn't read it in 66. I read it like in the 70s. But people believe the film was actually based on an Asimov book, but it's the other way around. It's the book's based on, and same thing. I think Arthur C. Clarke also did a novelization of 2001 with after it was based. I mean, 2001 was based on a short story he wrote, but he did go back and do a 2001 Space Odyssey book based on the movie that he and Stanley Kubrick came up with. That was a pretty common thing, I guess, back then. But there you go. So if you do read the novel, that is written by Isaac Asimov. And I guess that's part of Asimov's universe stuff. Alrighty, and then let's move on to the headlines. Yeah, this was an interesting one. I think I stumbled across this on the Facebook. Couple of quick things that you can do if you have a Netflix account that most people don't know about. Apparently, there's a hidden menu as well. One of them, I don't know, you guys, if you find this, but you can also have it like when you flip on a show, it just starts playing. You can actually stop it doing that. And then you can also, I believe you can get it to stop asking you if you're still awake, if you haven't nodded off while it's playing the movies, right? Or playing the shows. What was the other trick? The secret menu. Do you guys know about the secret menu, John?
I think I read something about this before, but I must admit I completely spaced on all this stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's one of these up, down, left, right, down, left, right, left, up, up, up. Don't quote me on that. I'm not reading it from this.
It's gonna say.
Yeah. But it's apparently get to try different things, and you can actually join like a trial program too, and get like advanced features before anybody else. There's one more.
Have you tried these things?
No, I haven't tried them. No, my TV remote is kind of wonky. I use the Apple TV app for my Netflix. I find that built-in TV app is kind of weird, and the Apple experience is a bit better. So they basically pull content into their stream, right? So cool. All right, and then you got something about Mr. Hedgehog.
Yeah, so Sonic the Hedgehog 2 has the best opening weekend for a video game movie, as it says here on the tin on this link. The original Sonic the Hedgehog movie was the previous best opening weekend for a video game movie, and Box Office Mojo says that right now the worldwide intake is 160 million. It's a pretty good split of 85 mil domestic and 75 million international.
So are you saying it had a better opening weekend than Uncharted?
Yeah,
apparently.
And World of Warcraft?
And Mortal Kombat, and insert video game movie here.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think the real test that we're all waiting for is how will the Mario movie debut against the Sonic movie? That's really what it's all about for us old school.
Didn't they already do a Mario movie?
Well, I mean, they did that terrible one back in the day, but there's a new one coming. Remember, Chris Pratt's going to be. They announced that when we talked about it like months and months ago.
He's going to be Mario?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It will have inevitable comparisons, and if you were doing the Mario movie, you would have to hope that it can. And it feels weird to say this in the Lord's year of 2022. It would be very challenging to compete against Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 2. There you go.
Cool.
Fun for the whole family.
Fun for the whole family. Right. And Poyo too. Yeah, so we were talking last week about the Star Wars Strange New Worlds trailer that had come out, the official trailer.
You want to try that one again?
Why?
You said Star Wars Strange New Worlds.
Well, there are Strange New Worlds in Star Wars. There's always Strange New Worlds.
There are.
Yeah. Okay, let's try it again. So the Star Trek, we were talking about the Star Trek Strange New Worlds trailer last week that came out last week, and but Jaime had mentioned that there was the lead up to that, and was short little 30-second teasers on each of the new characters in case we didn't know who Uhura was. Hello, but yeah. So the somebody's compiled a mega trailer, which basically has all of the little teasers all the way up, and including the trailer that came out last week. So it's got Dr. Mbega, and it's got Number One and Nurse Chapel, Leonard Nimoy, and there's a bit of introduction by the main characters like Anson Mount and Ethan Peck and Rebecca Romaine each have a moment as well in that. So yeah, just link in the show notes. I'll just link that here if you want to check that out. It's not very long. It's probably maybe 5 minutes altogether, but compiles all of the trailers that have been coming up towards this reveal. And that's coming up soon too, isn't it? In May?
Yeah.
Strange New Worlds? Okay.
Yep. I believe it overlaps with the last week of Picard.
Cool. All right. It'll be a busy week for us.
Get another twofer.
Hopefully Moon Knight will be done by then. Over to Jaime.
Yeah, for those of us who have not seen The Batman in theaters, we didn't have to wait that long. I believe this is the 46th day afterwards is when it will be available on HBO Max. And that says April 18th here. So as of this recording, that is Monday. So I got to start thinking about... I remember
seeing somewhere it's coming to Canada as well.
Crave. It's coming to Crave on the same day.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yep. Yeah, I was... Like you, Jaime, I was pleasantly but a little surprised that it was coming so quickly. Yeah. I'd be fine if movies wanted to do this going forward, if they wanted to come to our streaming services in 6 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, they must have got a chunk of change from HBO then, I guess, right?
Well, HBO is owned by Warner, which owns DC, which owns Batman. So that's vertical integration, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
As part of the calculus, I think this tips it pretty well, where I'm like, between this and Peacemaker, I got to see if there's anything else that I missed. I'll probably end up subscribing for a 1 month subscription to HBO Max.
Is Dune on HBO as well?
It is Warner's.
Because it's on...
Man, okay, that was a 2021 release, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I never did follow up because I ended my subscription in January. I don't remember what they were going to end up doing, but what they did for most of the 2021 movies is keep them up for 3 weeks to a month and then put them on the shelf for about 3 months, maybe 6 months at most, and then put them back permanently as part of the collection is what it seemed to be. I remember Wonder Woman 1984 going through something like that, and I think Godzilla vs. Kong doing the same thing. So I assume that if you miss it during this 1 month, you'll just have to wait a few more months and then catch it on the next part of the cycle when it goes into the permanent part of the collection. I think that's how they're doing it. It's all weird right stuff, I assume.
Alrighty.
All right, well, piggybacking off of some DC news, there's a story in the Hollywood Reporter that Jesse Martin, who is one of the last surviving original cast members for the Flash series, is going to be the new star of an NBC series called The Irrational. The reason why this is particularly relevant is because we've been talking even as we got the news a few episodes ago that the CW has renewed The Flash for a season 9, that this could be yet another sort of nail in the coffin for the end of that series. The Hollywood Reporter article sort of speculates that the final season could actually be a truncated one, a shorter one that is meant to sort of wrap things up And it does say that even though he's going to be working on the series, he's going to appear occasionally as a guest star on The Flash. So yeah, I think 9 years is a tremendous run for a series like that. And I think as much as I've enjoyed it, I feel like I'm okay with it ending its run. And this does seem to be yet another indication that we might be headed in that direction. So be prepared, folks, for the end of The Flash coming. Cool. And I think timing wise, it also makes sense, because if they wrapped it up in the not distant future, that would clear the decks of Flash versus Flash when they're going to do the Flashpoint movie that has Michael Keaton and all that coming up in the theaters. So to me, it makes sense timing wise.
Alrighty, well, we're at that part of the show where we start talking about something Star Trek shaped, and this time we're going to talk about Picard, Season 2, Episode 7, Monsters, and Jonathan will lead off, and then we'll do a recap on Moon Knight as well. So off you go with the Monsters.
Yeah, well, and I believe it was a couple episodes back we were making some references to Battlestar Galactica and the crossovers with Star Trek. Well, here we go again. So the episode opens with Picard still wearing his tuxedo, seeming to be in the middle of a psych evaluation, sitting across from Dr. Gaius Baltar, aka James Callis, who was of course best known for that role. It's funny that he's the voice in someone's head as opposed to the voice being in his head. I like the little symmetrical twist there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Picard's sitting there, and it's sort of it's presented as sort of a psych eval, and the idea is that he's sort of having his experiences probed. We know, as the omniscient viewer, that we're inside Picard's mind after he was run over by Sung in the last episode, and that this is him trying to sort of sort out his what's going on in his mind to try and sort of free himself from whatever's haunting him inside. I made the mistake, and I'll just introduce the word spoilers here to say there's a spoiler for a reveal that's coming later in the episode, but I had the closed captioning on, and it explicitly said it explicitly said when James Callis was talking, and you couldn't see his mouth on screen, it said Maurice. And I was like, that is a bad spoiler for what's happening here. It was so easy to put two and two together after that.
I didn't make the connection personally that it was his dad, but I had a feeling it was somebody related to him, or I'm wondering why we knew. Are we supposed to know who this person is? It didn't make sense, really,
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down in my notes, like right after that, dad ? Because that made the most sense. But yeah, it was it's another one of those moments where you're like, man, think a little harder, closed caption guys, like it could have just been like doctor, or you know what I mean, like, or
it could have called him Baltar
of Picard's mind, something. But anyway, so we'll get into the more grand reveal of that later on. But that was a bit of a setback for me, because obviously it changes the way you view the episode for sure. So anyways, this figment of his imagination, Maurice, is questioning him and sort of probing his psyche a little bit. And he sort of says, well, if you're not going to sort of cooperate, why don't you tell me a story based on this? And he hands him this object, which looks like the sun. And so Picard starts sort of narrating this story about the queen with the red hair. And of course, we see him sort of flashing back, but in a more sort of dream state, to his mom with this crown on and her red hair. And he, as a young boy, they're painting the windows in the solarium, which of course we've seen in previous episodes, the broken pieces of glass and the solarium where the two of them spent their time at Chateau Picard. The two of them are sort of talking, and she makes a comment that's something to the extent of, "You're so much like your father," and he says, "I don't want to be like like him. I want to be like you. And of course, we've had all these allusions in previous episodes to the fact that Yvette might have some mental health issues. And she sort of scorns that, and we get that sort of allusion to the monster. There's this monster that sort of lurks. We come back out of Picard's mind, and we get a glimpse of Seven and Raffi and Rios all sort of hovering around him, worried about what's going on. Seven and Raffi say, hey, it's been since last night. No one's seen Agnes anywhere. I think we need to go look for her. They go back to La Sirena, and they start trying to figure out if they can track her down. And of course, it turns out that they're locked out of the computer system. And not only are they locked out, but they're locked out by some Borg encryption, which immediately has Seven very much on guard. We go back to the clinic, where of course they're at Teresa's clinic, where she is she's let them in so that they can treat it. Talon is going to go inside Picard's mind using her fancy devices that somehow coincidentally seem to fit like Romulan ears. We'll get more back on that later on, but that was very funny when she slaps on these earpieces. Yeah, I thought that was very funny. I'm like, well, that's pretty telling. And then of course it comes back around later on. So of course she goes inside of Picard's mind, and from there, he's still playing these sort of riddles games with the Maurice, the doctor, the psychologist who's evaluating him, saying there's 1,000 ways to die down there, and so then he's sort of in this story that he continues to tell. We see he and Yvette, his mom, go down to the basement of Chateau Picard, and they sort of get stuck down there, and we sort of get Talon coming in and sort of intruding in this really vivid memory, trying to sort of help him work his way through it. And of course it's that the monsters have showed up, and the monsters have sort of dragged away his mother, and so he's alone, and he's stuck in the basement by himself, and so he's alone and isolated. His mom's gone. He's scared. She sort of says, hey, well, let's see if we can work our way through this. We go back to reality, and Rios is trying to, explain to Teresa what's going on without spoiling, obviously the fact that they're from the future and, possibly there to save the timeline. And she sort of says to him, hey, it's my clinic. He's my patient. Give me the damn keys. I want to see what's going on. Goes in and is like, sorry, that woman's got pointy earpieces on. He's, shaking. What's going on? He looks like he's got to go to the emergency room where he's going to die. Rios sort of contacts the La Sirena and gets this device sent to him that is supposed to, stabilize Picard's brain. Gives it to Teresa, and she uses it to stabilize it, and she's just like, who are you? What's happening here?
Is this real? Exactly.
Yeah, like what am I looking at here? What's happening? We go back inside Picard's brain, and he's still stuck in the basement, and the Talon is sort of working through all this with him, and sort of saying, well, are you stuck? Do you want to be unstuck, or do you like being here? Like, what's going on? They sort of work their way through it. These sort of doors appear into which Yvette had gone. Talon sort of kicks down the doors, and we sort of move into the next room. At that point, we cut to reality again, and we see Queen Agnes. We see Agnes, who is clearly still being controlled by the Borg Queen through the endorphins that she got from being the nightclub singer last episode, and she goes into this nightclub, and sorry, am I jumping ahead?
No, you're right.
Yeah. So she goes into this nightclub and she's sort of trying to figure out what's going on there. And oh no, that is further along. I'm jumping ahead. I guess the first part is where they see her, right? They're trying to track her down. It's where they
they see her on the scanner or whatever.
They see her on the screen,
videos,
right? First, so that's the first part before she goes into the thing. Okay, so that's that part. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead there, folks. We go to back inside Picard's mind. We're still dealing with this metaphor of there's a monster. We hear this banging. The banging actually starts to be audible when he's in the room with Maurice, the psychiatrist or psychologist working with him, and then he repeats that same line. There are 1,000 ways to die down here, and then we start to sort of get the more sort of true-ish perspective on this, which is Yvette was having a mental health crisis. She took Jean-Luc down to the basement. She was, sort of struggling. He was down there. He got stuck. She sort of left him down there. He was stuck for hours, basically with his foot stuck in this piece of broken floor, and his dad came down and sort of rescued him, and then as part of that took his mom for mental health treatment. But for Jean-Luc as a young boy, that was the monster is taking my mom away, the monster that lives inside her, the monster that is my dad. There's all these metaphors coming together. And, and he's obviously as a boy, he's very sad. And, and then Talon sort of sits with him and says, you'll do so much with this pain. You'll save millions of lives with this pain. And, again, sort of poignant and true, but obviously extremely painful. And then we get this little sort of glimpse too, as Picard seems to be gaining consciousness back to his to the real world. We get these very quick flashes that there's more to this story, and when they sort of reawaken, Talon and Picard are sort of looking at each other, and she says, there's more, and he's like, we don't have time for that now. We got bigger problems to deal with. At this point, Rios is talking with Teresa. She's got her son there. I'll circle back to this next point afterwards, but he basically sort of confesses and sort of says, yeah, I'm a human. Don't worry about it. And she's like, why is it people that say things like that? Like, nobody should have to say that they're human. And he says, well, what do you want me to be? And she says, I want you to be a good guy. He says, I'm a good guy, So he transports Teresa and her son to La Serena, and I love the reaction from the kid is I'm going to touch everything, which, yeah, you would, right? We go to the scene that I mentioned earlier where we see on the streets, we see Agnes. She's still wearing her fancy red dress, clearly still possessed by the Queen. She goes into a bar called Deacon's. Up on the stage on screen is Sunny Ozell, who is Patrick Stewart's real life wife, which was very funny. She's the one singing. And then she smashes this window with her hands, and you're thinking like, well, why is she doing that? And again, it's the endorphins, right? She needs to continue to have those endorphins to keep Agnes's true personality at bay and try and let her nanoprobes take control so that she can completely assimilate a host. This is really interesting, and I think we'll talk about this maybe at the end, but like, this seems like a real twist on canon of the whole idea of like, you're infected, you can immediately infect, like what we've seen in drone behavior in the past. But we'll circle back to that. So now that Picard's awake, his first question is Renee okay? Of course, he was doing all this to try and make sure that Renee was okay, got into the Europa program, lockdown before taking off on her mission. And Talon says, yes, of course, yes, she's fine, no problem. You succeeded in that part of the mission. And, Talon does reveal at this point that she is in fact a Romulan, that, he sort of guessed right on that one. Which, yeah, again, we'll circle back to some questions about that later on too. Picard sort of says, well, I think, he starts putting together this you guys can agree or disagree, very convoluted. Like, what is Q trying to teach me? Is he trying to teach know thyself? Is he trying to teach me about myself? Is he trying to teach me about him? It all felt a little far-fetched for me, but I guess I followed along. And he says, well, you know, I think I need to talk to Q. And so he goes to Guinan. For some reason, Talon doesn't come. So he goes to see Guinan at the 10 Forward bar. They have this very interesting scene where Guinan uses this ancient bottle that was used to seal a non-aggression pact between the Q Continuum and the Elorians to try and summon Q there. And, you know, the building's shaking in the whole 9 yards, and it doesn't work. Q doesn't just appear. And he says, well, what's supposed to happen? And she says, I summon a Q shows up. And it doesn't work. And, yeah, they you know, are sort of at a loss for why this hasn't worked. Although, again, we could speculate on that one in a minute. We then go to the Raffi and Seven. They go to that same bar, Deacon's, where Agnes had smashed the windows out, and they're sort of saying, well, you know, why would she do this? Seven figures, of course, it's the endorphins. She needs this to try and take control. And they both have this sort of moment of, oh no, you know, in bringing the Borg Queen back to the past, we may have doomed the future, because if she continues to take over, Agnes gets full control, she can then start infecting other people, and they may have brought the Borg to the past to assimilate them in 2025. Back to the bar at 10 Forward, a customer comes in. You know, Guinan says, you know, bugger off, we're closed. He says, I just want one drink. She pours him a drink and, you know, start talking about his love of sci-fi and how much he loves sci-fi. And then he shares this video that he has on his phone, and it's of Jean-Luc beaming in the first time he arrived at 10 Forward, or just then. I can't tell if it's supposed to be from, like, previous episode when he did that.
He did beam in previously in the previous episode.
Yeah. So he, you know, sort of shows them that, and then sort of, you know, flashes a badge, and it's an FBI bust, and all these agents come in, and Guinan and Picard are going downtown for some questionings, and that's sort of where we leave our episode. Yeah.
So it's interesting. I watched the Ready Room just a little while ago, and Will Wheaton had Ito Gahe or Gahawe, I don't know how to say her name, the woman who plays Guinan.
Guinan, yeah.
Talking about Guinan and Guinan's relationship with the Q, or the Elorian's relationship with the Q. Because I don't know if you remember from they showed some of the scenes from Next Generation where, you know, whenever John Delancey and Whoopi Goldberg were in the same scene, he was obviously intimidated by her. Q was, right, and she held up her hands in that particular way, and again, the actress Ito, she decided to have use that same pose when the FBI guy was coming down the stairs, because I guess it's sort of a way to ward off the Q. And the Q actually it was a Q episode where he brought the Borg to the Enterprise to introduce them to this new threat, and of course. The Borg had wiped out Guinan's race, and she explains to Picard and the rest of the crew, you know, the significance of the Borg and why they're such a horrible adversary, right? So it's kind of interesting to sort of see that perspective, and then the whole idea about like the thing about this way of summoning us. You know, last week it was like boring bodies. This week it's summoning suits and summoning people. This is made up for this particular episode, but the idea that a Lenorian could call a Q, and they're supposed to come, but I think we've already established that Q's lost some of his powers in this version of the world, right? It's funny, like you mentioned, the sort of self-discovery kind of angle of this episode. I found that a little thick today, like it painted, you know, with a real thick brush, but. Which is why I didn't want to do the recap, but
thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. But what are friends for? And then it kind of like it's sort of like, you know, we're supposed to believe that Picard's had this realization that he's sort of got the upper hand on Q now, because now he knows something that Q doesn't know in terms of, like, you know, why Q has brought him here. It's not so much that Q has brought him here. It's that, again, the trial's never over. We talked about that before, but the idea that, Q somehow needs Picard to sort of realize the source of his pain and struggles and stuff like that in order to get them past whatever predicament they're in here. Although it still feels like Q manufactured this whole situation with the 2024 thing, right? So, yeah, it was interesting to sort of hear her. I mean, of course, she was talking about the fact she was gets to play the character that Whoopi Goldberg created for her as a kid was really inspiring to see somebody that looked like her on TV kind of thing, right? And she also talked about the actual bar itself being a character in itself, right? Like to her, she said it looks like something how a black woman would decorate the place, right? And there are apparently there's lots of Easter eggs on the set. They didn't really go into it too much, but yeah, they apparently there's all these sort of Guinan characteristics in the ship or in 10 Forward, right? Besides the name 10 Forward and all that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, anyway, or number 10 Forward Street, right? Or Forward Ave.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting the way Rios and Teresa, like he's I'm not from outer space, I just work there kind of line. He said I'm actually from Chile, I just work in outer space kind of thing. I was surprised when he beamed them onto the ship, right? To be honest with you, like I thought that was. It
seemed like a bridge too far, but
and we'll see where that goes. I mean, is she going to come back and take care of the whales now? Is that where we're going with this?
Well, all right. So I want to get Jaime's impressions before we sort of dive into the speculation, because I think there's a few good breadcrumb trails here. Jaime, what did you think of this one?
I think it was all right. It wasn't like my favorite episode. It's moving some pieces around. It's a little weird that they just say, forget it, just corrupt all the timeline as much as possible. They just start casually doing weird stuff. Maybe
that's that scene where Homer Simpson has the bat and just starts whacking things.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to end up happening there. A statement you'd made around the assimilation. I don't know that the writers did a great job of this, and maybe I'm reading into it more than I should, but I was under the impression that the Borg Queen was pretty heavily, like almost like sedated in a way from the Confederation timeline, because when they had her in that little like bookcase, like the computer or somebody says like, oh, they're using all of this technology to suppress her abilities, right? It's like they had again, like sedated or gave her a lot of morphine or something else. So I interpreted that as like, oh, well, that's the excuse as to why her assimilation stuff is not instantaneous. She doesn't have all of the Borg juice that she needs. Right? Like, I feel like they could have been more explicit about that.
But I think that would have been good. Yeah. I found it funny because, again, we've seen that from TNG episodes to First Contact to Voyager to all the different iterations of the Borg over the years. A member of the Star Trek crew wearing a red uniform gets the Borg basically touch them and they turn into a Borg within a moment and they're under control, and then they basically start slapping cybernetic parts on them, right? So to see this very slow transformation is just a little out of that character or the sort of structure that they've built, but I don't think it's terrible. I just think it could use a little more clarity.
Well, I mean, like Seven does say, this is like they're witnessing the birth of a new queen, and what have we done here by bringing her here? We're changing the whole timeline in a negative way, right?
Yep.
Well, let's beam onto the ship and have a party. What the hell?
Yeah, exactly. Let's let the kid go touch the buttons. Maybe he can figure out how to unlock the Borg safety protocols that are put on there, security protocols that are on there.
Well, actually, no. It was one of these. Like Seven has this sort of like, oh, she used Borg, encryption program number 27. I can reverse. She does get in because she does figure out that it's a pretty basic Borg algorithm, right? It's like ABC 1 2 3 kind of thing, right?
Yep. Okay, two things. So it caught my eye very much that framed in the shot where Rios and Teresa are talking at the front of the clinic, the name of the clinic is right in the middle of the two of them, and it's very overt. And the name of the clinic is Las Mariposa Clinica. And of course, that mariposa is butterfly, right? Butterfly effect. That seemed extremely overt. Of course, you have to know like the smattering of Spanish that I do, and I'm sure there's a lot of people beyond me that noticed that. But to me, that was a very telling Easter egg of, everybody's been focused on Renee and the future there and what she's going to do. That feels very red herringy now, and it does feel like maybe it's Teresa and or her son are the things that we're supposed to focus on. So I'm putting that out there. You guys let me know what you think of my harebrained scheme.
Like my whale comment, there has to be a reason why she was selected to come onto the ship. Like they can't reverse the timeline. He can't do a mind wipe now. Well, mind you, they did make the cop forget, right?
Yep.
How are they going to make the her and the kid?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to.
By the way, I don't think
they build up this relationship with Rios and then pull the plug on it. Not with 3 episodes left, and also, again, I just don't think you put in an Easter egg like literally right on Main Street. Obviously, it's in a different language, but like that was extremely overt.
Yeah, did you notice too that Picard drops his badge when he gets arrested?
He does, but
on purpose.
Of course, you should do. Yeah.
But it also leaves a trail for Seven and Raffi, right? So
yeah.
We'll have to come back to him now.
Jaime, what do you think about that theory?
I think it could work because I was joking for like a while that there was like the nasty and the pasty thing, so I figured she
nasty in the past. I made me laugh last week.
Right?
Yeah. The other thing that just sort of became a little clearer this week when Talon has been sort of steadfast that she is not Laris, who, of course, Picard has a relationship with in the future. But the fact that she has now been inside of his mind, is connected to his family, has revealed herself to be Romulan, and, all of these different things makes me just think, well, how could they not be the same person? Is Laris not clearly just the future iteration of Talon?
Well, how many years are we talking about? 200, 400, 1,000?
400. 400. Well, more, right? So I guess this would be going from the 25th century back to the 21st century. So yeah, 400-ish years. But again, we've already established she's working for this mysterious, Watcher group and everything else. My sort of thought or theory at this point is perhaps she was assigned to Renee. Renee is fine now, and then she's assigned to Picard's ad infinitum after that.
Oh, I see, right, yeah.
Or and so her being around is somewhat connected to him, and that in the future, Laris the Romulan who works with him is the same person with the same kind of task. She just has taken a different approach.
Yeah, and we'll have to go back and watch that episode where she, the next day they kind of like, try to say, well, what happened last night, and she's very sort of standoffish in a sense, right? But she does say some things. Now I'm gonna have to go back and watch that, see if there was any
tips,
issues there, right? So
yeah, but yeah, those ones definitely stood out to me as moments of they're. It seems like we're getting a little closer to the truth on these things. I'm not sure what to make of that. I might do a little slow-mo watch through of that little blur that happens when Jean-Luc comes back to consciousness, where she sort of says, "Oh, there's more to this story than just your dad had your mom committed, and and you're sad."
Yeah, there was some flipping. I'm not sure what that was. There was some quick flips, right, in the editing. Yeah.
So I think there's more to unpack there, but we're down to the last few episodes. There's 3 to go, so I guess we'll see sooner than later.
I wonder if Brad Pitt was in there somewhere.
Nice pull. Well done.
All right, cool. We move into Moon Knight.
Yeah.
All right, Moon Knight. The Friendly Type was the episode this week. It was season 1, episode 3, halfway through. Only 6 episodes, right? 8 episodes?
Correct.
6. All right. So we start off in the beginning of this episode where Layla is talking to some strange lady who's, she's in the process of getting passport pictures taken, and they're talking back and forth very sort of casually as if they've known each other for years. obviously she knew Layla when she was a young kid, and talking about her dad, and going back to Cairo, and she learned some of this, these techniques about forging passports and getting in and out of different countries from her dad, kind of thing. And then we flash over to Harrow, who's got his followers walking through the desert, and he's got the scarab in his hand, and he's aiming the scarab towards some future object, and then all of a sudden the scarab points down, and they realize that they're where they need to be. Then we flash over to Mark, who's running across ceiling or rooftops in Cairo, trying to get from one place to another. He ends up on a top of a roof where we see 3 thugs killing a fourth person, and that's the person that Mark was trying to get to question, but of course he's there too late, so he starts having a fight with the 3. They don't do pew pew in this show. They flash knives and sticks and stuff like that, and rocks, and there were some bullets. There were some pew pew later, but as he's got the knife held up to one of the thugs' necks, he sees Stephen in there, and Stephen's saying, "Don't do it, be calm and peaceful and whatever." And then all of a sudden he flashes forward, like as he does. He kind of does a time jump, and he's sitting in a cab, and he asks the cab driver where they're going, and they're going to the airport, and he stopped the cab because he sees 2 of the thugs outside the window. He starts chasing those 2 thugs through the city. They're like, get away from us, you're crazy, man. And they run all the way through the bazaar in the city, and anyway, he gets caught. Flash forward again. And this time, one of the thugs is just falling away from him because he's just stabbed them in the abdomen. And he's kind of like regretting that he did that. And Stephen says to him, "What did you do? What did you do?" Oh, I know what happened. He gets caught, like running through the bazaar. He gets caught by the other assailants, and then snap, and he's forward again in time. He's in a different place, and he's just one of the guys that's falling away from the edge of his knife. Stephen says to him, "What did you do?" And he goes, it wasn't me. But he had just said that to the when he was chasing the 2 other guys through the bazaar. He was saying that that wasn't me as well. So there seems to be some sort of third personality starting to take over from both Mark and Stephen. And then so he's managed to kill off 2 of the 3 thugs, and the one younger thug is still there. And Khonshu says to him in his head, take him to the ledge, he'll talk. So he walks over to the ledge of this cliff. And he holds the kid over the cliff by his scarf and says, "Where's Harrow?" And the kid just looks at him and says, "Praise Amit," and cuts the hold he has on him, and basically falls to his death. And Khonshu says, "I could have sworn he would talk," And he says, "Well, isn't there something you can do? Like, can't you just summon the other gods and ask them, what's going on or how they can help?" And Khonshu says, "Well, that's not really a good thing because they're kind of peed off with me." And he says, "Well, what's the worst thing that can happen?" He goes, "Well, they could decide to imprison me in stone if they got angry enough, right?" And he says, "Well, have you got another idea?" He goes, "Well, I've got a really bad idea." This is Khonshu talking, and so the next thing you see is he's eclipsing the sun, and this is to attract the attention of the other gods. And he's chatting with Mark, and Mark says, "Well, like, how am I supposed to get in there? Is there like some sort of portal that I can walk through?" And Khonshu turns to his left, and turns to his right actually, and the wall starts to open up, and Mark walks through, and it turns out to be a portal into the Great Pyramid of Giza, which, of course, Stephen sees a reflection and makes a comment on that. And so the gods' avatars are there, and there's like basically 5 or 6 people there, and he's approached by one called Yatil, who's the avatar for Hathor, one of the gods, and also the representatives from Isis, Horus, Tefnut, and Orisis are there as well. And they're all...
Yeah, and they make a point of saying, like, in a couple episodes back, they say the Ennead has, I think, 9, because he makes a point when he's talking, I think it's the first episode when he's working at the museum. He says, you guys have got the posters outside wrong. You only have 6 on there, and there's actually 8 or 9. Yeah. And... yeah, so I guess that's the tee up for this one, but then the notable absences are Khonshu and Amit.
Right. Oh, I see. Yeah. So anyway, so the avatars the gods take over the avatars' bodies as Mark finds out, and so Mark, Khonshu speaks through Mark as well to these people, and so the other gods are all pissed at Khonshu. They're all mad at him for doing things that he does. Khonshu through Mark says his big problem is Arthur Harrow is trying to summon Ammit and have her take over, to do bad things, and so they call Arthur Harrow, and he appears in the they bring him into they transport him or beam him over or whatever. So he appears, and he starts telling the gods that Khonshu's unhinged, and his avatar is not a good avatar. He's got a split personalities. There's just at least two people running around in there, and it's
gaslighting 101 with Arthur Harrow.
Yeah. So finally, the gods speak to Mark, and they say, like, "Are you troubled?" And he's, "Yes, I am troubled." And so they decide to side with Harrow, and they leave, and Mark / Stephen / Khonshu have lost the argument and lost the battle, and Yantil comes over to him and says, "Well, there is another way. There's another person named Senfu who knew the location of Ammit's tomb as well, and so find his sarcophagus, and you'll find there might be some clues in the sarcophagus. And the sarcophagus has recently been sold in the black market, so go find out where that is." So he goes back to the bazaar, and he's running around, and he's asking people, if they know about this Senfu guy. They're all like walking away from him, kind of like, like he's a crazy, foreigner kind of thing, right? And Layla shows up, and she says, I can help you with this, and they decide to team up. And I'll help you find what you need. I know this guy Mogart who probably is like the guy on the black market that's got the sarcophagus. Let's go see him. And as they're traveling on a boat, and they have this nice little scene about how their relationship's falling apart, and which we're not going to go into, and or fell apart, and how she's got some troubled past with she's clearly Egyptian, from what their dialogue they're talking about, and the fact that she's talking about her father and going back to Cairo and home and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and she talks about how her father was murdered.
Yeah, the murder. I was going to mention that in a minute.
Yeah.
So they get there, and as they're getting off the boat, they notice there's another boat following them, and they figure that might be Harrow's men following them to find out where they're going. And she says, here's the cover story. Your name is Rufino Estrada, and we're just coming back from a honeymoon, and so on and so forth. So they're watching. They're playing a thing called El Merma. It was just like running around on horses with big spears, and he's like, does he put this on for fun? And she says, no, actually, he has the best people in Egypt come and teach him personally. So he's actually in playing the game with them on the horses. It's kind of like a polo thing, but with pointy sticks. So apparently he's an old suitor of hers. He's glad to see her. You don't need an excuse to drop by, kind of, smarm. And he explains that, he's not really collecting these antiquities for profit. He's basically preserving history. And so he's got this glass pyramid, reminiscent of the one at the Louvre, and inside the pyramid is the sarcophagus, and you go have a look at it. So the two of them go in, and they're looking at around this sarcophagus, reading all the inscriptions and hieroglyphics and stuff, and they can't really find out what's going on. And the pyramid's made of glass, and so of course you can see Stephen there, and he comments that they won't be able to do it because the inscription is, the information will be encoded, written in some sort of puzzle sort of thing. And so he says to Layla, I got to talk to Stephen alone. And so she leaves and lets him have a talk. And so of course he's in the pyramid talking to himself, and she says he's praying, like, he's being a goof like that and whatever, right? So and Stephen just sort of says, give me the body and I'll tell you what's going on, or give me the body and piss off. And of course so he starts to explain to him what to do with. He says, look inside the sarcophagus itself, and on the body there, or on the mummy, there are some pieces of paper or fabric or whatever with stars drawn on them. And he says, explaining to him how to put them together and fold this and turn that, and put these puzzle pieces together to build a star chart and find out where the thing is. But just as he's starting to make some progress, the bodyguards pull guns on all of them, and Mark flips it around and in his quick born-like reflexes and realizes that they've got guns trained on Layla as well. And she's trying to explain to them, we're actually not trying to steal this from you. We're actually trying to save many lives with this work that we're doing. And that's when the bodyguard, or the main guard, and Marmot discover that there's somebody else coming. And of course, it's Harrow walking up with a couple of his cronies, talking about how he can offer them whatever they've offered. I can double or triple it or tell you more about it. And Layla's saying to Anton, don't listen to him. He's just trying to like influence you in a bad way. And Harrow says to her, I'm trying to prevent the wounds from your father's murder. And, he tells Mark that you run worthy of love, and, I can offer you proof that's real, kind of thing. And, to Anton. And so he starts doing a chant and with his magic staff that he's got there. And meanwhile, Contra's yelling at him, summon the suit to Mark. So in his chant, and he recites a spell or something like that, which basically destroys the sarcophagus and so that nobody can have it, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, now we have the pew pew part where Moon Knight starts to fight. He puts on the suit and starts to fight all the people. And I forgot what happened to Harrow and his people. Did they just run away? But
well, Harrow uses his power to destroy everything, and then just is like, "Well, my work here is done," and leaves.
He leaves. Yeah, makes like a tree and leaves. And then so he in all the pew pew pew. Moon Knight opens his cape, and Layla runs inside to get some cover, and she says, "Buy some time." And so then Moon Knight starts kicking ass, and all kinds of fighting and stuff happens, and cool things, and all kinds of stuff. And meanwhile, Steven's yelling, "Stop it! Stop it! Stop beating these people up!" And finally, he manages to get the suit put on himself, and he becomes Mr. Knight, I think you said.
Mr. Knight.
Mr. Knight, yeah. And
because he gives the power to Steven, and then Steven becomes Mr. Knight, right?
Yeah, and then Steven's saying, "Time out, let's all be friends. Why can't we all get? Why is everybody fighting? Why can't we get along?" And anyways, more the pointy sticks come out, and they start stabbing him and whatever. So meanwhile, I didn't mention that Layla has been wearing this fancy network necklace, which clearly was, meant to be, they're almost like those little semicircles that Moon Knight has. And so she rips off her necklace, and she's fighting the main bodyguard dude. And so she basically rips off this necklace thing and just, ends up stabbing him and killing him with those knives. And then there's a scene there where, Anton's on his horse with his big spear, and he's charging towards Layla, who's in the middle, and Moon Knight's on the other end, and the two of them run together, and Moon Knight just manages to get her just in time to pull her out of the way so that Anton can't stab him, and then throws his little semicircle knife thing and kills Anton, and that's the end of him. And then, so then they say, well, we've got the pieces. We got to get some wheels. We got to get out of here and try and figure out our way to where Amit's tomb is. So they get a car and they're driving away. And as they're driving, Layla says to him, "What was Harrow talking about? Like, he knew why I moved from Cairo. He knew about my dad's murder. Like, what's going on here?" And Mark says, he thinks he can see people's true nature, and he's just trying to divide us and come between us and lay down some suspicion. And she said,
and it works.
Yeah, she works. She says, "There's too many secrets between us, and I feel like I don't really know you." And he kind of goes, "Well, you don't. You don't really know me." And so as they're driving along, there's one of Harrow's cronies spots them. And then so they pull over, and they on the hood of the car, they start trying to put together the pieces, and they can't figure it out. They can't, it's all ripped up, and they just grabbed what they could out of the sarcophagus before they took off. And so she finally says, "We need Steven. You need to give Steven the body to let him explain this, because he knows this stuff, right?" And so he says fine, and he walks away from the car, and he lets gives Steven the body, and Steven starts putting together the star chart, and literally makes it a shape of a star. But he also notices through the headlights that there's like these pinpricks, and as he's putting together the thing, he explains that the Egyptians, because there's so much sand, and there's no points of reference, they use the stars to navigate. And so he notices as he's finished putting his star chart together that the light from the headlights is making, like, the pinpricks are actually constellation patterns. And she's got this, iPad app, and of course it doesn't match the patterns anywhere that she can find. And then he says, well, it's because this was done 2,000 years ago, and of course the stars are in a different position now than they would have been back then. And Khonshu speaks up and says, I remember that night. I remember every night. And so he says, I can turn back the stars, but I need help. And so Stephen puts on Mark I guess puts on the Moon Knight costume, and he shows Mark how to turn back time, as it were. And so, and of course, it's going to be a cost to Khonshu if he does this, right? So they dial back the sky, so everybody in the world can see that the stars are all spinning around, like a long exposure kind of picture thing. And they turn back the stars to like 2,000 years ago, to the point where they can figure this out. Meanwhile, the avatars / gods in the Great Pyramid are realize what's going on, and so they decide, okay, this is they've gone too far, and so they start to do the chant to imprison Khonshu into this little stone statue, which they do. And then finally, now that the stars have been turned back, and Layla's got her little app thing working, she realizes that they get the longitude and latitude is 29 degrees north, 25 east. I looked it up on Google Maps, and it's like right in the middle of like a sand blob. I don't think it means anything particular. And then, but as Khonshu gets turned into this little stone statue, Mark collapses. Mark/Steven collapses, and she's in the desert with him. Meanwhile, Harrow is summoned back to the Great Pyramid, and he starts talking to the stone statue of Khonshu, and he says, things like, your torment pushed me and made me do this, and I owe my victory to you. And that's where the episode ends. Not so much of a cliffhanger. No FBI guys will come running in with guns, but we fade to black with Ethan Hawke as Arthur Harrow saying, "I've got the upper hand now." And that's that.
Yep. Worth mentioning, the episode was obviously dedicated to Gaspar Ulliel, who we talked about a while back in January, who died tragically in a skiing accident. That's who played Mogart.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
We had talked about him. He was ostensibly playing a comic book character called Midnight Man, sort of adapted. Same idea. He's basically a thief of antiquities, and so Mogart, the guy who played him, died tragically in a skiing accident in January, and so this was his sort of one episode of Moon Knight, and they dedicated it to him posthumously, of course.
In Thailand,
yeah. So, I mean, as performances go, it's a memorable one. He definitely plays a great smarmy bugger.
Mm-hmm.
But so. Yeah, there's some stuff to unpack here in this one as well. The whole, what's going on when Mark and Steven aren't in control. Mm-hmm. That's a question mark. Comic book readers, spoilers. Comic book readers will know that Mark has more than just the two personalities in him. So, as a fact, there's a few more, and so I think that's the direction that they seem to be headed with this, is that it's not just Mark and Steven that are fighting for control, and that we're kind of just scraping the surface. And I think that's kind of, as much as he was just trying to sort of push Layla away, I think that was for the audience as well, to say you don't like 3 episodes in, you think you know me, you still don't. You don't know me either, audience. Like, wait for it. You're going to see some more weird stuff coming up. And and then the other stuff with Mark is the yeah, now what does he do without the powers of Khonshu going into the sort of second half of this? How do they sort of continue forward if he's not Moon Knight, if he's just this very troubled person coming out of this?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I accidentally started the first episode from the season when I was doing my recap, and we missed it at the very beginning. But like Ethan Hawke is in. You can't really see it's Ethan Hawke, but he takes like a glass and he
puts it in his shoes,
and he smashes it and puts the broken glass in his shoes and starts walking on the shoes, right? So I guess sort of like a flagellation kind of thing, right?
Yep.
But yeah, that wasn't really explained at any point. But now that we know who Arthur Harrow is, we kind of get the gist of it, right?
Yeah. So my measure of these shows, particularly the Marvel shows, but pretty true across a lot of sort of genre television and movies, is these things tend to be as good as the antagonist, not the protagonist. Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, you can create a great protagonist, but you need a great foil. And the best of Marvel MCU stuff, the best of genre stuff is built around having great bad guys. And so far, I don't love how they've handled everything about him. I thought the gaslighting part in this episode was a little heavy-handed.
Yeah.
But Ethan Hawke is being a great bad guy.
Yeah. I heard somebody else say that too.
Like he is really just, again, he said he based this off of like cult leaders like David Koresh and people who are more as much about charisma as anything else, and the way he's playing that as sort of this, you know, charismatic person who just can talk his way in and out of everything. I think he's doing a fantastic job. I think he's really, you know, he's somebody that you easily hate. And I love Ethan Hawke. I've loved Ethan Hawke for 30 years. I think he's an incredible actor, but even knowing who he is, he's gotten so deep in that part that I'm like, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really what's kind of making this for me. I mean, the you know, Oscar Isaacs is great, and he's clearly, you know, it's fun to watch him bounce back and forth between the different parts and how he's playing Steven and how he's playing Mark, and of course, you know, the confusion, and I think they're doing a really nice job of that. Although I think, again, we talked about it in previous episodes, I think the editors are as much to thank. Like, his performance is great, but the way that they put it together is really strong. But yeah, to me, it's Ethan Hawke has just been you know, really, really compelling in this series so far.
Yeah.
Observations, Jaime?
I liked how they started playing more into the different strengths of each of the personalities, and how they're still kind of doing that tug of war, right? So like we saw let's let Steve handle this part because he's the Egyptian expert, right? The Egyptian mythology expert. And then when there's like combat related stuff, it's like, all right, let's go back to Mark, because he's that expert. And it's kind of personified in the, like, give me the body. Take the body back. When he's like, Steven's recognizing he's out of his league, and he's in the tuxedo, or the more business suit kind of suit, and he's like, oh no, I need the fighting suit. Bring that one back.
Yeah.
And I do think you're right about the villain, where that's where I sort of fumbled my way through the Ghost Rider stuff. I was really thinking about that narrow period of time of the Ghost Rider. At that point in time, was like, oh, we think this is the same spirit that haunted Johnny Blaze. And Johnny Blaze had like a Hellfire gun or something that he was trying to kill the Ghost Rider with, thinking that it was the same one. I think it wasn't the same one, but there's 30 some years of comic history that maybe it is or isn't a clone. Nasty in the Pasty father, you know, like I have no idea what's going on with the spirit of vengeance, you know, all in. But that's sort of what I thought about. Like, I thought it was kind of interesting to be like, yeah, Harrow knows this stuff because he's like, oh yeah, I was the Avatar before, right?
Yeah. And he's it's funny because he's playing it in this really kind of, yeah, just very, very like the jilted ex, things like things you would do to sort of spite your ex who jilted you and stuff. Like it's really interesting to watch the way he's sort of playing this like with sort of this perverse glee. Yeah, the other thing that we've probably circled back on is again that sort of illusion that that Layla doesn't trust Mark, and that we obviously get the allusion to the fact that her father was murdered. I mean, I don't think it's a huge leap and a jump to say that Mark is the one that killed her father. I think that's a pretty clear line from where they seem to be heading that one. The question, of course, is was it Mark or was it another aspect of his personality, so therefore he is blameless or otherwise? And of course, when that revelation comes out, what will it do to the dynamic between the two of them, right?
Yeah
I thought again, it was a weird episode because it was kind of a little bit exposition-y. It was there was a little not what's the throwing moon shuriken version of pew pew, ching ching. I don't know, like it's there's a little bit of that. It was certainly a little more actiony kind of stuff going on in this one. The body count certainly went up pretty fast. And yeah, again, it's positioned the second half of the season with a fair bit of drama. Again, it doesn't end on, as you say, the sort of FBI, this is a raid kind of moment, but again, it's Khonshu's imprisoned, Harrow seems to have the strong upper hand, Mark is left powerless. They know where they're going, but now what does that mean? They're going to head towards this tomb. They're going to figure out where Amit is and where Harrow is digging, but then what, right? So yeah, I think the setup is really good. I think it continues to be a pretty compelling series.
Cool. Hey, so listen, have you seen the Batman yet, Tommy?
I have not. I intend to see it sometime after the 18th when I subscribe that 1 month to HBO Max and get Peacemaker as well. Maybe anything else that I missed.
Yeah, because I think we should talk about the Batman poll.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah, so I was inspired by this. I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I was a comic book writer or author in the DC world was talking to Tom Power on Q and had told, he was asked the question, which actor or which portrayal of his does he think is the best Batman, and which does he think is the best Bruce Wayne? And the writer said that his opinion of the best Batman is Ben Affleck, because he's relentless. He's human. His superpower is I'm rich. Like he's, because of his wanting to solve crimes and just the way that particular Batman is portrayed, he felt is the best. But the Bruce Wayne he thought best was Christian Bale. Right. So which inspired me to sort of put together this pool of who plays the best Batman, who plays the best Bruce Wayne, and just for fun, who plays the best Alfred, right? So we have the results in. We've had 26 respondents here. Or should we say how many respondents we had? I don't know. We've had a bunch of...
No, it's 26, yeah.
We've had respondents. But yeah, so, and it's kind of funny, like when I watch the numbers grow over time, it's interesting. So the best Bruce Wayne portrayal, with 30% of the vote, is Christian Bale. The second best is Adam West with 23%, and the third best is Michael Keaton, which I found interesting because to me, like I think like the sort of the more diehard, maybe it could be my followers too, would probably be more in my age range. To me, Batman is Adam West, right? Because that's kind of like who's the best Captain Kirk? Well, clearly William Shatner, right? So. Although it could
who do we all vote for then for Bruce Wayne and Batman?
For Bruce Wayne, let's do Bruce Wayne first. So I voted for Adam West for Bruce Wayne, I believe. And who do you guys? I felt that, the Adam West portrayal of, he was very serious and he wasn't very comic-y and kind of stuff, like in his portrayal. Who did you guys vote for Bruce Wayne?
I voted West.
West, okay.
I ended up going the Michael Keaton route for Bruce Wayne, because his Bruce Wayne just feels like a psychopath, given his history of, like, he was a young boy, saw his parents killed in front of him, stays very separate from people because the Batman is the real person. And so going with that, I went with Michael Keaton's Batman as Bruce Wayne is like, yeah, that's probably pretty accurate as to how messed up you would be eating alone in your huge dining room.
Yeah, the only issue I ever like, his performance was good. It's his stature. I just did not buy him as
He's Mr. Mom, right? You know.
Well, no, and again, I was able to sort of divorce that. I mean, I've liked Michael Keaton since he was a comedian in the early '80s, but I just didn't buy him as in any way physically imposing, suit or no suit. So that kind of just like when I think of what Bruce Wayne must be like to go out and do this every night, I definitely picture Affleck, big, tall, strong jaw. That is more physically what I kind of picture as Batman.
No, we're talking about Bruce Wayne though.
I know, but I'm saying, but like that carries back to the Bruce Wayne of it all. Like you can't just be this little, frankly, not very big guy and sort of have that presence either or. Maybe that's the whole point. Maybe they're trying to juxtapose that so that when he's in the suit and he's got the fake abs built in and stuff like that, he seems completely different than the physical type, but it just something about that didn't connect for me.
Yeah, I can understand that. And who did you all end up going with for Batman? And did you say, Tim? I felt like you were maybe crossing over. Did you say who the poll was for Batman? Who the winner was?
Who won the poll? It was Christian Bale.
Not Bruce Wayne.
Oh, for Batman.
Yeah.
No, I haven't yet. No, so for Batman, the numbers were 40% for Christian Bale. Sorry. 28% for Kevin Conroy, which was I put that in for as a sort of as a lost leader, and then 20% for Adam West. So Adam West came in third.
Yeah. So I ended up being one of those people voting for Kevin Conroy.
Same.
Yeah.
It was not one I would have naturally added to the list, but once I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah, I do think his portrayal of Batman is pretty solid to my interpretation of the character in my own head.
Yeah, I haven't watched enough of the animated Batman to really be able to cast a vote in that direction myself, right? So,
well, it's funny. Like I think the thing that we're learning here is that we are all products of our era. So, Tim, you grew up with Adam West as your Batman, so you have a strong affinity for him. For Jaime and I think. Mm-hmm. Kevin Conroy was the Batman that was around the most. I mean, obviously Keaton was sort of same time-ish, but Conroy did more Batman in the 90s and early 2000s than anyone else. And for me, and I think I've mentioned this on previous episodes, but when I read a Batman comic book, Conroy's voice is what I hear, not anyone else. It's always Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, I think definitely when I think of the animated Batman, that's the voice I hear too, right? So, yeah. Just for the sake of science here, for people, because it's an audio platform here, we had Robert Pattinson, we had Christian Bale, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Kevin Conroy, Adam West, Ben Affleck, and Will Arnett. Of course, calling up Billy, just in case somebody. And
I love Will Arnett's, but it was hard to take it seriously. I loved Will Arnett's performance, but just hard to take him as that. And also, again, I think it's body of work and volume of work. I think Christian Bale did really well in both of these ones, but again, I think that's recency bias based on our voting group. I think,
definitely,
to a certain extent. I wonder if we get two or more Robert Pattinson Batman movies and did this poll over again in a few years, I wonder if we'd see that start to skew more towards Pattinson.
True. Well, I mean, but interestingly enough, George Clooney did get some votes as Bruce Wayne, and Ben Affleck got a vote or a couple of votes as well, right? So, but on the Batman side, we had Robert Pattinson was the other one, and then Michael Keaton as well were the fourth and fifth. The Batman, the Alfred one, I thought was really surprising. But then again, it's also this recency bias thing too, because I think Michael Caine played the most recent Alfred, right? Andy Serkis is the current one as of the last movie, and Michael Caine stole us with 65%, which I think is amazing. I mean, but again, that's the recency thing. Like, I mean, didn't Michael Caine played it in all the Christian Bale movies, right?
Yep.
But and surprisingly, Michael Goo played Alfred in like 3 of the other Batmans, right? We mentioned that last week. So he played. Keaton's and Kilmer and Clooney's.
Kilmer's and
Clooney, right?
Yep.
But of course, Alan Napier was the original Alfred.
So who did you guys pick for this category?
I probably picked Alan Napier again.
I was one of the multitudes in the Michael Caine category.
Yeah. I actually took Sean Pertwee. I thought that show was a disaster, frankly, to be kind.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed Sean Pertwee's performance in that show. I think he was the strongest part of that show.
Yeah.
Him and Cameron B. Kondoa as the young Catwoman. I thought those were the two standouts for sure in that series.
Oh, yeah, the young girl. Yeah, she's good. But, it's interesting, though. Like, to me, Michael Caine is Michael Caine. Like, it's like I've seen him in so many movies that he's Alfie. He's the guy from The Italian Job, the original Italian Job, for those of you driving at home. And he's like he was in The Man Who Would Be King with Sean Connery. Like, he's just he's an actor that's hard to put into. I can't see him as a character. You know what I mean? Like, I can't, like, if he played Hercule Poirot, I wouldn't see him as Poirot. I'd see him as Michael Caine playing Poirot, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's the difference too. Is like, and because Alfred, to me, like Alan Napier as Alfred, like the couple of times that he put on the Batman suit and drove the car around the city, like, just because nobody could figure out that why is Batman all of a sudden wearing glasses? Nobody noticed. And why is he speaking with an old, English accent? And, because now, of course, you have the, the remote control car, but back then in the 60s, Alfred would have to drive the car to Bruce Wayne, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I found the ridiculousness of him playing, the things that he had to do for his boss to get, his boss out of these sticky situations was just comical, right? So, yeah. But yeah, and it's interesting. Like, Sean Pertwee, I did like him you're right, in the Gotham series,
because he had to take the adult. Because again, he was mentoring a young Bruce Wayne. He kind of had to be more than just the stately butler. He had to be a mentor. He had to be a dad, and he had to be a badass. At times he was like, and they tied in that sort of, he wasn't just always a butler. He was, a special forces SAS agent and stuff like that. And I just think they gave him more to do, and that made him a more compelling character. And also just Pertwee's a good actor.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. I'm sure there'll be many debates, but
bring it on, folks. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, we'll post this to the socials and we'll go from there. Ready. So let's move on to our watch list. You guys go ahead, because I don't have much this week.
Mine is a well-edited video of Saul Goodman as Peter Parker's lawyer. It fits in. It fits in pretty well with the No Way Home scene. So Better Call Saul season 6, the final season, is coming out this, I believe, Monday the 18th. So I thought it was well timed to have this come out.
Nice. I'm definitely going to check that out. That's funny. I have a few different things owing to the fact that obviously I wasn't around for the previous episode. The first one, a little outside of our area, but Winning Time, the series on HBO Max. That's one I'll recommend for you, Jaime, if you're going to have a month's worth. And if you time it right, you should be able to get it in there while the first season wraps up. But it's basically a dramatized version of the story of the Showtime Lakers from the late 70s and 80s. Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and of course Dr. Jerry Buss. So it starts with him, buying the team and sort of having this vision of, I want this to be spectacle. I want this to be sexy. I want this to be something more than just, 5 guys on the court, dribbling balls. And it's fantastic. It's Adam McKay. So of course, Adam McKay, Vice and obviously so many other movies that he's done, has that sort of, historical look at things, but with tongue in cheek at times, people breaking the fourth wall and talking to the camera. And It's great. John C. Reilly plays Dr. Buss, and he is fantastic as this just sort of schlubby kind of dude, but somehow is irresistible to women. And of course, he's extremely wealthy. But it's really, really fun. It's a fun series. It's a fun look at sort of that era of the NBA, if you're an NBA fan, but also just Hollywood in the early '80s, where that was at, that the drugs, the political climate. It's really well done. I've watched the first, I think, 6 episodes now, and I'm digging it. It's really fantastic. So I recommend if you're just looking for a fun watch, it's really, 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 really enjoyable stuff. On the coming up front, Russian Doll, the Netflix series starring Natasha Lyonne, is coming back next week, and so I'm looking forward to that one. I think I should be able to watch a little bit before we do our next recording, but I really dug the first season of that. Really an interesting take on the whole sort of Groundhog's Day. You're stuck in a time loop kind of story, but with this, delightfully acerbic wit that only Natasha Lyonne can bring to a story. And there is a trailer, so we'll have that up in our show notes. Have a look. It does seem like it's going to some even weirder places for season 2, but I'm curious to see how they build off of the sort of weird temporal world that they've had her character stuck in for the first season. So, looking forward to that one. Kids in the Hall. Amazon released the first trailer for the reboot of the Kids in the Hall. The iconic Canadian comedy troupe is going to come back and do a whole new series. The trailer is hilarious.
Oh, you mean they're doing it now, like redoing it?
Yeah, it's a brand new Kids in the Hall series is coming starting in May on Amazon, and the trailer that I put up in our notes here actually starts with them literally like getting an excavator and like digging up their graves, and the 5 of them lying in a grave being like, oh man, what happened? It's really super funny. And I'm there's glimpses of some old characters. There's a lot of self-effacing humor about their aging and everything else, and it just looks so hilarious, and I love those guys. I mean, Tim, I know you and I are obviously on the same page that this is just, these guys are incredible, and I cannot wait to see more of their delightfully absurd way of looking at the world back on my television set. So
cool, yeah. I've been watching some of their stuff on because I think I was surprised when I saw this here, because I think it's been on Amazon for the last few years. Like
the original was, and they put up Death Comes to Town, the limited series that they did. Yeah. I think went up recently on Amazon as well. So I think they're sort of stocking the larder with Kids in the Hall content. But yeah, it's coming back in all new format and all new episodes with all new characters and the whole
Lorne
line.
Michaels again, or?
I didn't see that. Didn't seem to see that in the trailer. Obviously, the guys are there, all the 5 original cast members. But yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure. I would be surprised if there wasn't some involvement, but who knows? But yeah, I love them so much, and I can't wait to see more of them. Jaime, does Kids in the Hall resonate with you all? It was kind of a 1990s thing. I know it was on in the United States too, but it was really huge here.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were going to do the crushing your head thing, and then I'm delighted
in the trailer.
See the CN Tower, I believe that is, getting crushed.
Yeah. Stand back, coppers, or the tower gets it.
Well, Jonathan and I've seen them a couple of times. I think at Massey Hall once, and I think I saw them at
the Danforth. We went and saw them at the Danforth too
as well. Yeah, they're really good. They're really good live. They're really funny.
They're great. Yeah, they're great live. And yeah, again, it astonishes me that these men can be so creative, continuously creative. I mean, we're talking about 30 years of this now, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, Canadian legends.
Yep.
The last thing that I've got in here is, I guess it's a watch list / question, which is today is the day that Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore is in the theaters.
Yeah.
What is the consensus on, is this something to be seen in a theater? And do you at all care about this? Harry Potter was a monstrosity, a huge big deal, but not so much this stuff. What do you guys think?
Well, my experience with the Fantastic Beasts franchise so far has been watching it on the back of a headrest on an airplane.
That was the Crimes of Grindelwald for me. And I don't think I was soured enough from that experience to turn away from this altogether. But I do think for me, it's not, for me personally, it's not a theater. It is a, Netflix, Amazon, back of the airplane kind of.
It's meant to be seen on a 7-inch screen for sure. Yeah.
Well, it'll be HBO Max because it's Warner Brothers, but I don't know. I mean, I dug the first one. I didn't see the first one in the theater. I saw it, I think, when it either came to streaming or I can't recall how I saw it the first time. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was, very clever. Again, the whole idea of like this magical menagerie gets loose in New York City in the early 20th century, and they have to try and put them back into the zoo. And then there's this underlying thing. I thought that was really enjoyable. And then I thought, okay, for the second one, I enjoyed the first one. Maybe I'll make an effort to see it in the theater. So my wife and I think one of our sons went to go see that one in the theater. I think all of us came out going like, what? And yeah, it was clearly a step backwards as far as the quality and enjoyment. And of course, that was all tied into the whole Johnny Depp thing. And, so it was kind of a mess. And now it seems like, it's been a long time since they did the second one. I think it's 4 years since they did the second installment. And it seems like they've retooled it. It's a little less focused on, the Catherine Parkinson character, on the Newt Scamander character. And it seems like it's now Jude Law Dumbledore, which means, of course, they're trying to cater to the Harry Potter faithful more than just the people who like the wizarding world. I can't decide if I care enough. Do I need to see Jude Law as the center of this movie? We've talked about my general disdain for prequels. This is a story that's kind of been told in the backstory to the Harry Potter books of, Grindelwald rose up and Dumbledore, was his friend when they were boys, but then they were enemies and they had a big duel and Dumbledore won and Grindelwald went to jail. Cool. Now I know the whole plot to the whole thing. I don't know how it happened in the details and stuff. Again, I'm sure the production will be good quality and I'm sure the acting will be fine, but I just don't know if I need to spend, $25 to see it in a movie theater, or if I can wait 46 days, as you say, Jaime, to wait for it to pop up on HBO and Crave.
Yeah.
I suppose I'm mad at J.K. Rowling for saying that she's only going to do the movies and then that's it.
That's the other thing. Well, that and just the J.K. Rowling of it, right? Like her views on trans rights, her views on all that have really also sort of really poisoned the well on, I think, a lot of people on this whole world. And it's funny that I saw an article about it this week. They're talking about how they haven't even greenlit the fourth and fifth parts. It's supposed to be a 5-part series.
Oh yeah.
And they haven't even greenlit the fourth and fifth parts because they want to see how this one performs. I don't imagine this one wraps the whole story up. So it would be a humongous decision to just discontinue doing the Fantastic Beasts series. But given the backlash against J.K. Rowling and her views, and given the backlash, obviously, that they felt because of the Johnny Depp casting, and then obviously just the who cares of it all, I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see how this comes together.
Interesting. Cool. Well, mine is just sort of a follow-up on a follow-up. I did read the book Station 11. I really loved the TV series. The book was okay. It was interesting to sort of see the differences between how they treated the series with the TV series against the book. I mean, there's a lot of characters and things like that are similar in both treatments, but they did a much better job sort of stitching things together in the TV series. I mean, obviously, when you're writing a book, you have, you can go any direction you want, but a TV series, they have to have certain things that sort of fit together and how characters interrelate. There was a whole sort of character relationship between two of the key characters in the TV series that didn't exist in the book. The two characters do meet in the book, but they play a very smaller role. It was a good book. It was enjoyable, but yeah, definitely the TV show was hands down much better than the book itself. So yeah, if you're deciding which way to go, I'd skip the book. I mean, the writing does seem to be interesting. I would probably try and read some more of her stuff, but yeah, definitely the TV show was a much better all round experience, right? And it's short too. Like it felt like it could be longer, but yeah, good. It's sort of a bit of it was pandemic-y, so there was like, there's a pandemic in it. There's sort of what was that movie with funny name from Donnie Darko?
Jake Gyllenhaal?
Jake Gyllenhaal, the movie with the disaster movie where he's with Amy Rosen in it, and like the world freezes over. It's kind of like that, plus...
Oh, The Day After Tomorrow?
It's a bit like A Day After Tomorrow, kind of, surviving in winter. Like the pandemic happens, early in winter, so they have to survive winter, just as we normally do in Canada, right? Which doesn't feel like a stretch. But if you imagine if all the resources are gone and the grocery stores are gone and there's just, this disease going around, killing people, I can't imagine anything parallel to that. But... And a bit of The Walking Dead, and the sort of survival after the apocalypse kind of thing, right? Without zombies, no zombies in this one, just people. People are the worst part in the Walking Dead. They're also the worst part in this as well. Yeah, the TV series was one of the better things to watch for sure. Oh, and Severance, just the season finale of Severance was last week, and every episode had ended a cliffhanger. And the cliffhanger that the series, the first season, ends on, you're like, okay, well, I'm ready for the next episode, but it's not going to be for a little while. So, yeah, really good ending to Severance. So if you haven't seen Severance, check that one out for sure. Oh, and I'm watching Slow Dogs is still cooking along, being really good.
And you thought you'd have no watch list.
Yeah, well, I mean, I talked about Slow Dogs last week, I think, didn't I? Pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, Station 11. I highly recommend that. I think it's one of the better shows. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely. If whatever service you're deciding on, if you want to add that to the Lopez calculus, then definitely I would say that one's worth watching. I'd Station 11 over Secrets of Dumbledore any day. How's that? All right. Well, I guess that's it for another week. So, hey, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
I'm always on Twitter and Instagram as @JPK News.
And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, where do they find you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevOfTheHair.
All right. My name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA. On the Twitter machine is where you'll find me. Until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
That is, of course, until Elon Musk buys all of Twitter and changes all the rules.
I know. I'm not really looking forward to that.
He's so rich, he's the most powerful troll out there on the internet.
You're right, Jaime. That is the ultimate troll move. I don't like the way this platform works. I'm going to buy it for $46 billion.
Yeah.
Change the rules.
Yeah. But it's strange. It's strange that somebody would put them, you don't ever hear that on acquisitions and stuff mergers. You never see them put the money out there. So now we're all going to go to Jack Dorsey and say, what's wrong with you? Why can't you accept that? Isn't that enough for you?
Well, I mean, Dorsey doesn't even have that many shares, all things being equal now. There's not much he can do about it. This is now essentially the definition of a hostile takeover.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, it's Yeah, it's a weird situation. I honestly, I found myself thinking about it a lot today. I read some pieces, and the New York Times did a good podcast about it this morning. But I was like, this is almost a paradigm shift if this happens, because then what happens to my Twitter audience for social media? That's my job at work, is managing. We've got, I don't know, it was 37,000 followers on Twitter. If the rules change, what does that do to our work? So
yeah, I don't know. It's pretty much the social media circus that I like the most,
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because his objection is that it's not free enough. My position would be that it's perhaps a little too free at times, because it's still packed with hate speech and trolling and all kinds of unpleasantness that still continues to be fairly unchecked.
Yeah.
But what a strange development.
Well, I guess when you have money, you can do anything you want, right?
Yeah, if you've got 46 bills to drop down, I guess you can do what you want.
Well, he is apparently the richest man in the world these days, they say, right?
That's what they say. That's what they say.
Well,
I was trying to figure out how to include the tragic passing of Gilbert Gottfried in our.
Oh, we forgot to mention him.
Pod, but I didn't know. Like I looked through and I'm like, where does he fit into science fiction, fantasy genre stuff? I'm like, the closest I could come was being Iago and Aladdin, but yeah, still. It's funny because he was just here in Toronto a couple weeks ago, and in March he came and did a couple of shows. And I saw them advertising it. I was like, oh, do I want to see Gilbert live? I'm like, I'm not sure that I could sit there and listen to Gilbert for 45 minutes doing his thing. I mean, I love him, and I've seen him countless times over the years. But man, 45 minutes of that man yelling at you with that voice, I'm not sure I could handle that.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was an icon. I mean, unmistakable. His voice, his whole shtick. I mean, he was a comedy legend.
Well, Howard
for sure.
Stern played a sort of compilation of his appearances. And one of the funny ones was that they had a caller call in, and the caller kind of got annoyed with them, and so then he wanted to make his point, and so Gilbert Gottfried went, okay, you got the audience, okay, go ahead, talk, go ahead, say something, okay, we're listening, go ahead, we're listening, go ahead, say what you want, we're listening, come on, yeah, and just over the guy couldn't get it, and you could clearly hear this. You could feel the steam coming out of the guy's head as Gilbert Gottfried was just talking over him. Right, so it's hilarious. Yeah, but I think that voice was also an act too, because he did a pretty good Jerry Seinfeld at one point in the show.
Yeah, well, he did. That was one of his. Apparently, he used to do that in the comedy club.
When they were coming up together. Yeah.
Was do that impression, but
Jerry used to hide and say, "I don't sound like that."
Yeah. The one I'm gonna paste into our notes that you guys should watch is the one that was shared yesterday that made me laugh the hardest was Weird Al Yankovic. Have you seen the Weird Al My Imaginary Friend Gilbert?
No.
Oh God,
yeah, I'm not sure that I have.
It's basically Weird Al's pretends to be answering a question from a kid. He's like, I'm gonna tell you about my imaginary friend Gilbert, and Gilbert Gottfried standing beside him, and he goes, "I'm not imaginary, I'm a real person." It's so funny.
Yeah.
It is one of my favorite bits because I'm a big Weird Al fan too, but that part has always killed me. The I'm not imaginary. Like, can you imagine an imaginary friend like Gilbert Gottfried with that voice?
No.
But yeah. He all time too. So Tim, I think you've seen it. Jaime, I don't know if you've ever seen. There's a documentary that came out.
Oh, The Aristocrats.
20 years ago or so, called The Aristocrats, and it's based on this joke that comedians tell each other off stage.
Mm-hmm.
And Jaime, have you seen it? I don't want to explain it if you've seen it.
I don't. Hold on, let me look it up one sec.
I may have talked about it on More Than Just Code.
So the premise is basically there's this joke that comedians tell each other, and it has the same setup and the same ending, and then the middle is like playing jazz. It's up to the individual artist to make up what comes in the middle, and the object is to be as horrifying as possible. So you are deliberately trying to provoke and anger and upset each other with whatever comes to your mind, as depraved as it can possibly be. Yeah. And so they did this whole documentary where they talked to, it must be like 50 or 60 different comedians, and had them do their versions of it and talk about just the history of this joke. And Gilbert is an all-time legend in the comedy community for being the guy who did it on stage.
Oh yeah.
And there's a big chunk in there where they're basically saying, like, yeah, no one would ever have the guts to do that on stage except for Gilbert Gottfried. And they show him doing that bit on stage. It's because he was bombing this one event, and he was like, you know what? F you guys. And he started doing the Aristocrats joke, and he had the place just in tears with his version of it because it was so over the top. So yeah, it's that one has always stuck with me, that, you know, he's a comedian's comedian. They love him, and that moment, I think, cemented him in a real special way for other comedians, that this guy was among the top of his class.
Unstoppable, yeah.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen it, Jaime, I highly recommend. I think Tim and I and my wife went to go see that in the theater.
No, I have a copy of it.
I have a copy of it too, but we went and saw it in the theater. I don't know if you and I know I saw it in the theater, and I know Sherry was there. I thought you were there too, but I thought I was going to die. I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard.
Yeah.
Like, it was so funny.
Well, I was given a copy of it by somebody who was on the production.
Yeah, so unbelievably wildly offensive. Like, not for the faint of heart. It is
like Bob
vulgar
Saget
to the extreme.
Like, that's where his reputation came from, was that particular. Yeah.
Gilbert Gottfried's a legend in it. Bob Saget, George Carlin. Like, again, it's basically a who's who of living comedians at that point.
Yeah.
Everybody, Drew Carey, like, I mean, everybody's in it. Is Billy Connolly? Like, everybody's in this thing. It is incredible. And I think I want to say it was Penn Jillette that actually was one of the producers from Penn and Teller.
Oh, Jen, yeah.
Yeah.
Penn Jillette.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't believe we talked about the Aristocrats on Spotcast.
Well, you don't have to include it, but not for you kids. It's not for you.
No. Ask your parents if you can watch the Aristocrats. No, it's not about cats. Not animated cats either.
Yeah, there's a great sort of follow-up documentary to that one too. That's a documentary called F-U-C-K. You can spell that one out yourself, kids. That's a documentary about the history of that word and how it's used. The same thing. They basically have this all-star cast of comedians, and they talk about why that word works and why it's so impactful and everything else. Really nice sort of companion piece to the Aristocrats.
Yeah, that's on Netflix.
Is it?
Yeah,
I have a DVD of that one.
Bob Saget hosted that, right?
I can't recall now that you mention it.
Oh, maybe it's a different one, because there is a Netflix series about words.
Oh, you mean the history of swear words? That's not Bob Saget. That's Nick Cage. God, Xavier and I watched that. We laughed hysterically. That was really funny, because they have the comedians and they also have like the sociologists and the university professors and stuff talking about the history of certain swear words. That was great. Also, Nick Cage he's an insane person, so it's just a lot of fun to watch him be himself.
Yeah. He is insane.
Yep.
That's true.
All right,
kids.
All right, Jaime. Have a good long weekend.
Yep.
Have a good one.
All right. See ya.
Yep. Bye.